All right. Actually, we'll have Laurel Black, I believe, introduce our candidates first. Laurel, and
Hi
also
there.
Kevin and Connie, if you can make sure you guys are unmuted and on your camera.
Okay. So today we have a political forum, which is no surprise this time of year. We have the candidates for the current race for the Senate seat for Legislative District 24. We have the incumbent with us, Kevin Vanderweg. He's running for re-election, and his challenger is Port Commissioner Connie Beauvais. So there you go, John.
All righty, Kevin, we need you to unmute, I think, and through the camera. By the way, everybody, for your questions, please use the chat line. Just type them up, and I'll be reading them to the candidates. And by the way, the election is just right around the corner, but we'll have ballots probably in your mailbox next Friday. So it's here. Anyway, Kevin, I think Connie went yesterday first. I'm going to have you go first. Everybody, they're going to be doing a 3-minute rundown about their qualifications and why they're looking for your vote. Kevin, why don't you go first, then Connie?
Okay, thanks, John. Good morning, everybody. I'm actually going to turn off my video because I'm waiting to go to work this morning. So
okay.
in my car, and I'm just worried about the connection. And I think it usually has keeps a better connection if I don't have a video going too. So I apologize about that.
No problem.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Vanderweg, your state senator, running for re-election for the 24th legislative district. I'm honored to serve currently, and look forward to another term. In Olympia, I serve on the Senate Ways and Means Committee, which is the Money and Fiscal Committee. I chair the Agriculture, Water, Natural Resource, and Parks Committee. And I serve also on the Healthcare Committee, which is also obviously vital for the Olympic Peninsula with our healthcare needs here. As I just mentioned, I work for the fire department in Sequim, and I'm going to be working today, where I'm a lieutenant paramedic. And I live in Sequim with my wife, Jennifer. She's a Port Angeles elementary school teacher at Roosevelt. And we have 2 kids. Allison's a sophomore at Western Washington, and Jack is a junior in high school. My main focus in the legislature has always been about jobs. I've worked hard to create and maintain jobs that we have here on the Olympic Peninsula. It's difficult and hard to create jobs in rural areas, but we have had some good successes, and I look forward to continuing to work on job creation. I think it's vital when people have jobs, they're able to take care of their household, pay taxes, there's less domestic abuse, and less drug and alcohol abuse. So ultimately, I think jobs is the way we make our healthiest communities. Obviously, we need to continue with our healthcare needs. We have been successful in getting Olympic Medical Center an increased Medicaid rate. It and Grace Harbor Hospital down in Aberdeen, which is also in our legislative district, are the only 2 sole community hospitals in the state that get a higher Medicaid reimbursement rate, something we fought really hard for and will continue to be working on. And that, I'll wrap up my 3 minutes and look forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Connie, 3 minutes.
Well, good morning again, everybody, and thank you to Norwester Rotary for hosting this forum. I am Connie Beauvais, 5-year Port Commissioner with the Port of Port Angeles. I was a Clallam County Planning Commissioner for 8 years, spending those years working on Shoreline Master Program, marijuana, conditional land use changes, transportation improvement projects, and more. I was a Coast Guard auxiliarist for 5 years and sat as an elected on the last Charter Review Commission. I have worked for K-12 schools in community relations, personnel, administration, curriculum, and finance. I worked with the University of Alaska and have worked for the federal government. I've owned several small successful businesses. My husband and I had commercial crab and halibut licenses in Alaska, And we have a small sawmill. So when I want another shed for an alpaca, we cut the tree and we mill the wood. I currently manage the 22nd largest nonprofit drinking water system in the state of Washington, and of course own an alpaca farm in Joyce. In other words, I have a very deep and broad background and experience. My top priority, if elected your senator, is to get our state back to normal. I realize that may be a new normal, but it needs to be one in which we get all our businesses reopened while keeping employees safe. We need to get our kids and grandkids properly educated while protecting students and staff from COVID. You know, our disenfranchised children and families in this rural district are even more disenfranchised now because many of them can't afford computers and they don't even have an internet connection. Balancing our state budget without adding more tax burden on citizens and businesses is also a top priority. There should have been a special session called to the legislature. We need good common sense decisions at the state level to reduce spending, just as our businesses and families have had to do during this pandemic. I believe it necessary for the legislature to review the governor's power in an emergency. Citizens have not been represented in the blanket decisions that have been made during COVID. The people's representatives should have been heard in a public session. And we need to fix the fish and public timber land use issues in the state by increasing fish hatchery production, not decreasing it, and not allowing arrearages and timber harvest on public lands. Those public trust lands benefit our junior taxing districts, and our rural fire departments have really been impacted by DNR's lack of appropriate management. To summarize, if I'm elected, my priority is to the citizens of the 24th district to listen to you, understand your needs, and represent you in Olympia. I look forward to your questions this morning.
Thank you very much, Connie. Let me begin things with one question. Do you favor or oppose Sex Education Referendum 90, which in the words of the measure would require public schools, quote, to provide comprehensive sexual health education for all students and require students to be excused if requested by their parents, unquote? Kevin, could you go first on that? R90.
Yep, you bet. Thank you for the question. I do support referendum 90. I think it's straightforward sex education for our schools. Already 60% of school districts in Washington, including Port Angeles, use the curriculum that is in referendum 90. It expands it a little bit, but it's already widely in use. What we found is that in the 40% of schools that don't do it, there's higher incidence of STD and teen pregnancy. But the real reason I support it is because it teaches, it goes into younger grades and teaches about good touch and bad touch to younger kids. And I think most of us read the paper every day, and just about every day there is an article in the Peninsula Daily News about some degree of molestation or rape to children. And a large part of that is caused, if you read the articles and track it, is caused by kids being taken advantage of and not knowing what's right and what's not right. And I think when we teach a broader sex education, it's going to have an impact on that in the future. Because to me, that's deeply disturbing that we have such a prevalence in our society, in the best country in the world. We have such a prevalence of child molestation still today. And I think referendum 90, when it's approved, I think that curriculum will have a big impact. I support it.
Okay, Connie, R90.
I will be voting no on R90. And, you know, this particular referendum that is on the ballot has had the most signatures of any initiative or referendum that has been before the voters in the history of Washington State. The parents are really upset. I know there's a lot of teachers that are upset too. Yes, there are certain things that we absolutely need to touch to teach, good touch and bad touch. I know a lot of young people who have been subject of molestation by relatives, friends, and unknowns. But there are some problems with this particular sex education, and that a lot of people feel, rightly or wrongly, that this is a desexualizing, or I should say a degenderizing and sexualizing of kids at a very young age. I know kids are growing up faster or maturing faster than they used to, but we don't need to encourage it. When you watch the TVW of the hearings that went on, and they were showing pictures in the particular curriculum and book that they were using, there was a caution adult material flag down at the bottom of the screen. But this was going to be taught to fourth graders, you know, how to put a condom on a banana type of thing. What is really disturbing to the parents is that they were not involved in this decision. So I think it's perfectly fine, you know, I've worked in school districts many years myself, to have a goal that is set by law. But let's get it closer to local control, where parents, teachers, administrators, and local school boards are involved in those decisions and when and how it's going to be taught to those children. Yes, health is very important, and teaching good touch, bad touch is absolutely the thing to do, but let us not sexualize our kids too young. I'll be voting no.
Okay, thank you very much. Connie, I'm going to have you take this this first question here we've got from Scott Butler. What are your two top legislative goals within the first 12 months, if you're elected?
Well, first we need to make sure that the budget is balanced, and I know at this point that it is the governor's job to do. However, the governor really cannot look at programmatic changes. He can only do across the board cuts if those need to be done. So if there is any, let me call fine tuning, and the forecast has been changed. It did look like we might need a machete to do fixes to the budget in order to balance it. Hopefully it will be more of a scalpel technique if there are any changes that need to be made. But I assure you, I will not be voting for any tax increases to balance that budget. That would be wrong, wrong, wrong at this point in time with our businesses and our families. And because I have so many things that are top, but let's see, because there's ghost bills that we do need to look at, but that is way down the list now. The top one is going to be making sure that our budget is balanced just as we look forward, and we not increase any taxes. So I can leave it at those two right now.
All right, thank you very much. Kevin, your two top legislative goals if you return to the Senate? Oops, Kevin, you need to unmute there. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
Top goals, jobs and healthcare. And thanks for that question. Job creation is something I'm passionate about. Once we're back down in Olympia, I want to work on legislation to help retain the jobs we have and work to create new ones. I know McKinley's making sure they're good with, now that they're reopened, with their permitting process and their negotiations with Port Angeles harbor cleanup, and same with Port Townsend paper. There's potential of a new mill in Port Townsend. It might go down to Shelton, but we're certainly working on that. So job creation, as always, priority number one. Healthcare, we got to fight hard to keep that higher Medicaid reimbursement rate for Olympic Medical Center. Unfortunately, now it is going to be a wash with CMS cut coming on the federal side, which is all OMC gets about $4 million extra a year from the state higher Medicaid rate that we fought for. CMS is cutting them roughly $4 million a year from the Trump administration cut that they're getting. So unfortunately wash, but obviously we need to fight hard to try to keep those funds coming. So jobs and healthcare are my two top priorities.
Okay. Continuing kind of this theme from Tyler Johnson. It mentioned in the voter's guide that there have been $2 to $5 billion authorized in new taxes. This seems like a lot of money. Please explain. Kevin, why don't you go first on this?
Yeah, it's something that Connie brought up at towards the beginning of the campaign, and in 25 billion in new taxes is in the voter's guide. I've worked with staff, and we've really worked hard to try to figure out what they're talking about and where that number comes from, or what my opponent is saying. We have a $55 billion biennial budget, roughly. It takes $55 billion to run the state for 2 years. So if we raise 25 billion in new taxes, we would have no financial problems, obviously, and be able to fund a lot more things. We think that 25 billion is some taxes. So we push through some taxes on Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, other large corporations. That's going to fund higher education, and it's free higher education, community college education, for half of Clallam residents if your household earns $50,000 or less a year. And then we also did a payroll tax to fund long-term care, which I think, frankly, is going to be a legacy bill on the Olympic Peninsula for us, just because we have such a high elderly population, and it is the largest employment by sector taking care of the elderly. I think if you extrapolate those over 10 years, and then you take in, we gave school districts some permission, some taxing authority that most end up taking. Port Angeles, for instance, had taxing authority that they didn't use. But I think if you assume that every school district took their maximum taxing authority, if you assume all that stuff over 10 years, which Congress works off a 10-year budget, the state does not, I think you can get close to 25 billion. But to be honest with you, we have no idea where that number, that $25 billion number comes from.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Connie, $25 billion reportedly in new taxes.
I don't know where that 25 billion came from either. I know that there was talk of $12 billion, and Paul Gottlieb had it spelled out in the newspaper, and I don't have that at my fingertips right here. But they did approve a record-breaking $52.4 billion budget. And then this year, they voted in an additional $1 billion supplemental spending bill, which really enlarged the state's already record-breaking budget. And later that bill was amended to include COVID response money. And less than 3 months after the original $1 billion vote, the governor ordered Washington agencies to look for $1.9 billion in budget cuts and hiring freezes and equipment purchase. And I'm sorry, I don't have that right at my fingertips, but it was clearly spelled out. Paul Gottlieb researched it out and did have it in the newspaper.
Okay, thank you very much. And the question from North Schaff, how should the state of Washington and local communities prepare to prevent or reduce the impact of wildfires in our rural communities, such as we have seen in Oregon and California this summer? Connie, could I ask you to go first on that?
Sure. That's not, Norm, that's not an easy overnight fix, but we have gone from carefully managed lands to not managing them virtually at all. I know that there is a neighbor policy, and hopefully that will help some in Eastern Washington. That is where the Commissioner of Washington's public lands is working with the federal government to do treatments to forests on the east side of the Cascades. However, we over here, we hold our breath every single year. Fires, as you know, are not typically set. The majority of them are not set by humans. It is caused by good old Mother Nature. So we would have to negotiate with her to maybe have less lightning strikes. That would help a lot. But there's so much that we really need to do to fix the problem, and it is not setting more lands aside. It is working on those lands, commercial thinnings, taking out trees that are diseased and have died from bug kills, reducing the canopy so that you can have the fires move more quickly at the ground level through forests, rather than also having the upper canopy fires that have been so terrible. I have a good friend who has a really large cattle farm. It's one of the largest in Northern California, and he's had 2 fires in the past 3 years. And fortunately, he's a retired police chief, and at one point he bought a fire engine so that he could save his barn, which he just did with $20,000 of hay, and his entire herd of cattle. But the reason that all of this is burning is because we don't have the level of prescribed burns that we used to have, because there are many people who don't like to see that ash and soot and carbon go up into the air. And because of that, the fires are exponentially greater than they used to be. So we need to get back to managing our lands, not just setting them aside and letting them burn, because in the end, that is worse. We've got a lot of work to do.
Kevin, wildfires, is the state doing a good job?
Yeah, actually, what Connie just talked about is a lot of what's happening on federal lands. On state lands, there is quite a bit of forest health going on. We can do more. One of the things that I proposed for the last couple of years is a slight insurance premium for insurance companies to pay an extra cost to fund forest health and wildland fire response efforts. They fought it pretty hard, but I think they're starting to come around just because they're having to pay out so much in premiums during these devastating fires. We just got to be sure to convince them that their money is going to make a difference. But I think they're getting closer, and I think that will have a big impact to our forest health and being prepared to fight wildfires. And as always, working with Eastern Washington legislators, we've made a lot of progress on prescribed burnings. There's some federal permits that are a bit problematic, but I think we'll continue to go after those and make progress. But really in the northeast portion of the state over the last couple of years, there's been a big increase in prescribed burning, and I think that's the right direction to go in.
Okay. And we're closing in on our completion time here. Kevin, could I ask you to kind of go to your closing statement? You have 3 minutes, and then Connie, you'll follow.
Thank you, John, and thank you for Norwester Rotary for the opportunity. I asked for your vote for another term, and folks, I understand folks aren't always excited or appreciate the things that I have to say, but I work hard on telling you the truth and being honest and upfront and working hard for you every day. Amazingly, Connie just said she didn't know where the $25 billion in new taxes that she talks about in the voter's guide on page 49 and tries to hit me on. She doesn't know where it came from. So I'm a bit surprised this morning that she says one thing and then says she doesn't know where it even came from. So I don't do that. I work hard to tell you the truth and fight for you every day. I hope to have another term in the Senate to keep working on job creation and healthcare and making sure the Olympic Peninsula continues to be the best place in the state to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Over to you, Connie.
Sure. Well, I'm a little bit surprised because Paul Gottlieb reported in the paper specifically where the tax increases came from, and Kevin was quoted right in the paper saying he had no idea where those increases came from after he had voted yes on them. So just truth be told, I understand how government impacts citizens, businesses, and our environment. and how important timber and fishing and hospitality industries are to our communities, and how important a clean and healthy environment is to all of us. In my book, every business and every job are essential to our community and to our families. In my daily work, I have the opportunity to meet with many rural citizens to hear about their struggles with work or lack thereof, with childcare, and with businesses that still wonder how they can break even or afford the increased costs of hiring more employees, since it looks like unemployment premiums will be drastically increased. I understand what it's like for customers to not even be able to pay their water bill. And I understand the huge challenge facing businesses like Black Ball Ferry and what that business's impact is on our entire Olympic Peninsula. My opponent votes with the I-5 corridor. You deserve a senator who will make decisions based on impacts to the 24th district. I will do that for you. Your representatives in Olympia need to spend as much time in the trenches as possible in their districts, so they will have knowledge that they need to make the best decisions in Olympia. I'll do that. During this pandemic, I've been seen around the 24th district working to get personal protective equipment for our first responders, talking to businesses to understand their struggles with their businesses, with their employees, and with their future, working on a petition to the governor to get fishing reopened, since it is an outdoor activity and easy to maintain physical distancing, and getting potatoes and onions to people all around this district so those products wouldn't rot or be turned under in the field. Talking to people in the communities not only helps elected help them to better understand the community they represent, it offers opportunities for electeds to bring broken links together. The late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had many memorable quotes. This is one that particularly resonates with me. I would like to be remembered as someone who used whatever talent she had to do her work to the very best of her ability. That's what I will do for you if elected. I'll use all my talents to the best of my ability to make sure that state government works at its highest and best potential without detrimentally affecting the citizens it serves. Help me get to Olympia by voting for Connie Beauvais State Senate. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both Kevin and Connie very, very much. We're out of time. President Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Connie. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us this morning. Thank you, John, for mediating this. Always a pleasure to have you do that. And at this point, if there's no other announcements or anything like that, I'm going to go ahead and give you back your day and look forward to seeing you next Friday.
John did a lot better than Chris Wallace, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Again, look for your ballots next Friday. They'll be in your mailbox.
And bring your shovels and rakes on Monday at 3.
Okay,
Monday-
and it's the whole
Monday
week
through Friday,
too?
right?
Yeah, every day. If you got a day, come by. We'll be working.
Okay.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is supposed to rain, though.
Come on. Where do we live?
Like I said, it's supposed to rain.
Steve, how late do you think we'll be when we're working?
Oh, maybe 5:30 or 6, Roy. And it's going to get dark.
Yeah.
I know how hard we work. 3 hours, we're done. We're